Draft. You are listening to Everfree Radio, and today we have a very interesting guest for you. Mr. Coder Brony. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Well, so Coder Brony, you're working on a little project, and you are here today to tell us a bit about it. Why don't you tell us a bit about what it is you've been working on?
Sure. I think the easiest way to describe it is to kind of describe how it came to be, because it explains also a little bit about me and how I came to be interested in this. I am, in addition to being a professional software engineer and a Brony and a longtime fan of many things, am a freelance journalist. And among other places, I write for the Christian Science Monitor, which, for those of you who don't know, is a major international Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper. And once I got involved with the ponies last year, one of the things that journalists do is that they say, oh, wow, is there a way that I could get paid to write a story about this? That's something I'm already interested in. So I pitched a story to one of my editors at the Monitor, who runs kind of their art section, they call it The Culture, about doing a story about how fans interact with shows in the age of the internet. And she bought that, and I talked to a guy who had been Josh Whedon's president of Mutant Enemy when they did Serenity and all that, about how he had reacted to the fans. And I talked to one of the writer-producers of Chuck, and of course I had to talk to Jason Thiessen about how the ponies are working with the fans. And this was just about when Derpy was happening. So we talked a lot about Derpy, and that featured in the article. One of the things that happened as a result of that is I started talking a lot to the folks at Hub PR because they set it up. And I had one of those middle of the night things where I just had why hasn't anybody ever done this thing before? Everyone has talked about how great the show is, and everyone has talked about how we want it to keep going, and how can we let Hasbro know? And we do all these very indirect things where we do charity work and we do YouTube videos and we interact with members of the staff from DHX and people like that. But at the end of the day, Hasbro is a corporation, and the bottom line is what they notice. And how can we do something that directly impacts the bottom line in a way they'll notice? When you buy toys, it all gets mixed into the general sales figures, and it's a wash. Nobody, there's no way that they can take out the Brony factor and then say, 30% of our toy sales are coming from Bronies. But one thing they do is they own half of the Hub, and the Hub is hurting for money. They are selling a lot of what are called house ads, which is where they run basically ads for other stuff in their own network because they're not selling out their ad space. So I said a very direct way that we could show support for it is to buy some ad time on the Hub, which is something that no fan group has ever done before as far as they know. So I did a little investigation. I talked to the PR people at the Hub. I actually tried going through the Hub's advertising department, who had no clue how to deal with me because they're used to dealing with creative agencies with $100,000 budgets who want to buy a season of ads and things like that. But my PR person finally got me involved in the marketing folks at the Hub, and the marketing folks loved the idea and got me in touch with the sales folks at the Hub, and they came back and they gave me, I knew about what the high end of what it should cost is, because you can actually get figures out there on what the average cost of a 30-second spot on cable TV is, and it's not as big as you would think it is. But they came back with a number that was very attractive, and I said, we could do this thing. We could do an ad where we publicly thank the makers of the show in a way that also supports the product and financially supports the idea that we want this thing to continue. What's kind of gotten added on later on to that is, and by the way, we could also promote a well-known charity in the ad.
And so you came up with a name then for your little project, your little endeavor. Why don't you tell the fans what the name is?
Sure. It started out life as the Brony Thank You Project. You can still find the project itself over on a fundraising site called Indiegogo, INDIEGOGO.com. And in fact, we were on their front page for a while. And then it's /Brony after that. That's where we did the fundraising for the commercial. The commercial fundraising is still going on there. It's got about half a month left to go on it. We've already met our goals. We're still taking funds in so that if people want the perks, like Pixel Kitties is doing a big 11 by 17 poster for us, or if people want to be mentioned in the credits on the YouTube version of it that's going to run, they can still do that. But since then, we have transitioned, because we did fundraise more than we need to fund the ad and the associated costs, like doing background checks on the people who are going to appear on the ad, and we have to pay for the posters and the mailing and things like that. But we've now, according to my trusty Excel spreadsheet, raised more than we even need for that, and it's pretty clear we're going to have a reasonable chunk of change left over after the fundraiser is done. One of the things we noticed is that there is no, and we had to get into tax law here for a second, there's no federally recognized 501c3 for bronies. For those who don't know federal tax law or are lucky enough not to live in the United States in terms of taxation, there is a section of charities called tax exempt. And what tax exempt means is if you make enough money so that at the end of the year you file a Schedule A, which is itemized deductions, you can take the money you gave to charity and you can deduct it, which means you get whatever your tax rate is back in cash. So if you pay about 20% of your income in cash, you would get 20% of your donation back. But the point is that if you are somebody who, say, wants to do a fundraiser at a con for some local hospital or something big like Child's Play or something like that, and you don't want to just take checks from them written out to the charity and forward them on because you want to do a big check, or you want to be able to take cash, or you want to be able to take credit cards and funnel it on, then you get into this catch-22, which is, let's assume you're not a particularly wealthy brony, so you're not filing a Schedule A. They're going to give you, say, $1,000 at the con. So that is treated by the IRS as $1,000 of personal income to you. So now you have two choices. If you made enough so that you could deduct it, you could just send the money on to the charity and you would take the deduction, and then you would be clean because the amount you took in and the amount you deducted would match. But if you don't, then suddenly you've got, say you're in a 20% tax bracket, you're going to have to pay 20% of that as taxes. So you have to take it out of your own pocket, or you have to take it out of the donation you make. We would like to be able to offer the ability for small fundraisers who want to do small fundraising for charity to establish a fund with us where we could funnel the money through to that charity. They could do the collection. They could do it in our name. We could then cut a check to whatever the charity is, because we will be, if we file for 501c3, tax exempt. Then the donations that the individuals make is tax deductible, and we don't have to worry about it because we're a tax exempt corporation. And in addition to that, because there are very stringent requirements on 501c3s, which, let me tell you, I am so looking forward to doing the yearly paperwork on this. We have to file balance sheets. We have to file who our board of directors is, who anyone got paid, not that we're planning to pay anyone. We have to file exactly who we gave our money to and how much we gave. And this all goes through the federal government. And you can just go to a website and look at it. You can go to GuideStar and look at it. So it's a very open, transparent process where you can have a lot of confidence that you're giving to somebody who's not just going to disappear with your money. And I want to say right away, I'm not casting aspersion on anybody who has raised funds, but, someday there's going to be somebody, just by the nature of the world, who's going to try to take advantage of the bronies, and would prefer there to be a way that you could just say, yeah, absolutely, we know because it was given through this that it is rock solid. And I also want to say, if you want to give to some white bronies for good, I encourage it. I'm not in any way saying that those guys are not doing a good job and they're not responsible. But for people living in the U.S., there are advantages to dealing with a 501c3 charity. And we want to be able to offer those advantages to fundraisers and to bronies who want to donate money.
So what you're basically getting at is that the ad that you have been raising money for has been funded, and that the extra money that you guys bring in isn't just going to get weaseled away. It's going to go towards some charitable causes, and it's going to be done in a way that will make sure as much of the money goes towards the charity and not towards taxes as possible.
Right. Now, there are going to be some setup costs on this. Unfortunately, the one big cost we're going to have is that filing for that 501c3, in addition to a 28-page form we get to fill out, requires an $850 filing fee. So that's a one-time cost we're just going to have to live with, and that's going to come off of some of that additional money that comes out. The sense of the board of directors we have formed, I should mention the official name of the fund is the Brony Thank You Fund Incorporated. It is a registered New Hampshire nonprofit. As of last week, we have a bank account. We have a board of directors that includes Pixel Kitties and Haybuck, who is one of the well-known Boston Brony folks and the PR director for BronyCon. It has on it also the CEO of a medium-sized electronics firm who sits on another board of directors of a nonprofit, because we wanted a little bit of balance in terms of having somebody who's like not just a brony. Not that any of our guys are just bronies, but someone who kind of has some gravitas, as it was in the business community. So the sense of the board was we want to have $1,000 to pretty much give to charity in the short term. for one thing, to kind of prove that we are actually giving money to charity. So the idea is, as soon as we've got probably about $2,000 over what's committed for the ad, we'll have $1,000 we can give to charity. We'll have the $850 for the filing fee, and we'll have pocket change left over if we have to go and buy deposit slips or something like that until more money comes in. I should also mention we have already had a Brony, who is a lawyer who is an expert on taxation, who does pro bono nonprofit work, come forward and say that he will assist us in walking our 1023, which is the federal nonprofit application, through the process. So that's a big expense we're not going to have to deal with, is trying to find any legal representation for this.
Well, so in the end, you've got a set plan and you've got a board of directors and specialists in place that can make sure that this runs as smoothly as possible. I wanted to actually get towards the ad itself, though. I mean, I think that a lot of the fans are really interested in what it is you're planning on putting on the hub.
It's going to be people brushing the hair on their ponies methodically, obviously. No,
it's going to be neckbeards everywhere.
Neckbeards everywhere, and there'll be a lot of references to shipping. I mean, we're very open about this. When you run a commercial on TV, you put your best foot forward, and that's just the reality of advertising. So the people who are going to appear on this ad are what, I call them role models, but, I've also heard someone said third-grade heroes. These are people that a 6-year-old kid is going to look at, and this is really what my tertiary goal, beyond the two I've already talked about is that a 6-year-old kid will look at a firefighter or a soldier or a business person or someone, building a house for Habitats for Humanity or someone like that, and is going to say, wow, these people are the kind of people I want to be when I grow up. And they are not afraid to say that they like this kids thing. I quote C.S. Lewis a lot. One specific quote of his that, it's kind of when I was a child, I played with childish things. People don't usually know that whole quote, which is what he basically says is that putting away childish things to be adult is being childish. And it's only when you really become mature that you realize that it's okay to embrace childishness and to enjoy things for the pure love of them. And I want that kid, when they're 13 years old and getting bugged because they've got a Rainbow Dash sticker on their backpack, to remember that soldier or doctor and say, something, go buck yourself. I'm going to be my own person, hopefully in more polite terms, but don't get them sent to the principal's office. But, I could be my own person. I could love this thing. Why are all you kids talking about Jersey Shore, where people are as despicable and hating and awful to each other as possible? And I'm getting made fun of for watching a show that celebrates being a good person. Because that's, I think, at the end of the day, what the show is about. It's people can have their differences, people can disagree, people can clash because their personalities don't match. But at the end of the day, you should be a good person, a good, moral, friendly, caring person. You should embody the 5 elements of harmony that we get access to, unless you're pagan and know something I don't know about magic.
Well, and I was going to say, though, it does seem like this show right now, especially, is actually growing in popularity. And, little known fact out there is that I actually do work at a high school, and I work with a lot of students. Several of my students are bronies. And the thing is that it's actually, a lot of people are viewing it as cool. I believe that the brony movement is actually, in a sense, I don't know how to put it, a litmus test for culture. In a lot of ways, society has progressed, and I think that it's more accepted than it would have been, say, 10 years ago. But I think you're also right. I mean, an ad like this can reinforce that idea. I mean, and the ad isn't just necessarily for that target audience, is it? I mean, it kind of is a reaffirmation for the bronies themselves, too. I think that that's where it can have a lot of power, is that it will appeal to so many different groups.
Right. And I have to say, I've talked a lot lately in some of the blogs and forum posts I've done about taking back our brand. Because especially I saw this a lot once this broke, and we got a lot of negative initial reaction. I saw where it was coming from. I want to say I have spent my fair amount of time on Reddit and my fair amount of time on Memebase and places like that. But I think everyone can kind of agree that the Chans and Reddit and Memebase and places like that kind of glory in and reward snark and cynicism. So they kind of focus that viewpoint on the fandom. And so in that viewpoint of the fandom, everyone becomes a clopper, everyone becomes a furry, everyone becomes a guy living in his basement who, just every possible get a life connotation you can. And the reality is, if you get out and off the forums and go out and go to meetups and go to, schools and things like that,
Or conventions.
Right. Well, conventions are, again, kind of a microcosm that distorts reality in other ways. And this is said having spent 15 years running science fiction conventions, so I've seen this for many years. But, when you get out in the real world, lawyers, doctors, sailors, engineers, people with normal lives, people getting doctorates. There are 50, I did the Brony herd census in January, and I had 9,000 respondents, and 53 of them were freaking PhDs. Over 300 of them had postgrad degrees. It's actually, if you look at the stats and compare them to the U.S. averages, we're better educated than the general public. So it's not like we're a bunch of failures who just sit and brush our pony toys compulsively to make up for the lack of a good life. And we need to start seizing our brand back and saying, no, we are not the same kind of small, what normal, and I'm air quoting here, people consider creepy people that these communities tend to focus on as our image. We're just people who like this show. Stop trying to pigeonhole us like that. Let us, celebrate the fact that this is a really good show. We want to say thank you for it. And by the way, when has it become such a bad thing to say thank you? The group we're dealing with here, people like DHX and people like that, this is an industry where, great, you buy them breakfast, and I have to say the guys over at Bronyville, if they want to buy them breakfast, that's a nice gesture. But these people get rewarded by public acclaim. This is an industry where they take out full-page ads around Oscar time saying, for your consideration, yada, yada, So the way that you thank people like this is the way any audience does. You give them a standing ovation. And on a TV show, the only public way to give them a standing ovation that isn't just seen by bronies or people already inside the community is you run an ad and you say, thank you, you're doing a really good job.
Well, let's get back to that ad then. And Let's talk about what you had in mind for how the ad's going to play and where you're going to find these role model bronies. Maybe talk about what you were thinking in terms of how the ad's going to go.
Sure. So the script has pretty much been set. We sent it off to the Hub standards and practices folks because everything has to be okayed by the Hub before this runs. And the final wording, and I'll just read out the script to you first so you get a feel for it. It's obviously 30 seconds long. Just whenever you hear a pause in a sentence, imagine it's a new person saying this. So it's going to go, hi, we're bronies. We're friends of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and would like to say thanks. Thank you to Hasbro and the Hub for creating such a fantastic show. Thanks to DHX Media and all the animators for making it so beautiful to watch. To the voice actors and singers for bringing the characters to life. To the composers for creating such wonderful music. And to Lauren Faust and the writers for bringing a little more honesty, loyalty, laughter, generosity, kindness, and magic into the world. And then depending on how it times out, we will either put up a card or have someone say, help us in showing appreciation for the show by donating My Little Pony and other toys to Phil and Charity, because we're still negotiating with the charity we want to use this holiday season.
Well, and I think that's a perfectly respectable ad. I mean, and the other thing, too, is that I really look at it from my perspective that this sort of thing can be very positive for the fandom. I think we really do need to start establishing ourselves as more mature and more conscientious. I think that it's like any other community. The people with the biggest mouths are the ones that define it. And you see that with, a lot of these guys who are, maybe spitting out vitriol or being, rude on the chans and on Reddit and all that. But I think that stuff like this is really what's going to end up defining this fandom. So
I also want to say, because you asked how we're going to pick people. So as of a couple of days ago, but when this was taped by, so Doctor Who's will figure out how long it really is based on when it runs. But last Friday, we put the script up on our website, which is bronythankyouFund.org, where you can also, by the way, give us direct donations that don't get the Indiegogo cut taken out of it, or buy our cool merch that has Pixel Kitty's logo on it from Cafe Press.
Oh, and Pixel Kitties is awesome.
She is. She turned out a logo for us in 2 hours.
She's pretty amazing, and, I don't know anybody who doesn't love Pixel Kitties.
I've got her IM now, so we get to chat all the time. So anyway, we put the script up, and we also put all the submission requirements. And some of them are technical, like please 1080p video, and no noise, and highest quality equipment you can find, and no visible mics, and only one person on camera, and here's what the rule of thirds are, and here's what a 3/4 shot is, and all that stuff. So hopefully we want this to look as professionally shot as possible. I spent 5 years in video production at one point. I know my way around this stuff. I have a full suite of video production stuff. I have lots of people who have things like After Effects and other tools like that who have volunteered and said the key limiting factor is going to be how good the stuff that comes in is. So we're hoping to get as high quality, best sounding stuff in as we can. The main thing that may cause some people trouble is we got to be absolutely squeaky clean on this, because these folks are going to be role models. Some people, certainly not your average 6-year-old or 6-year-old's mom, but some people out there with agendas are going to start researching these folks. And you have to be able to Google the heck out of them and find absolutely nothing wrong. So if we select you, if you are one of our lucky chosen few, we are going to ask you for every alias you use on every website, what your DeviantArt account is, what you post on as Yahoo, what you post on, do you go to, what boards do you post on? We are going to ask for your license, and we're going to run a full criminal records check, just like if you were applying for a job. So don't submit something if we start Googling in and we find, you wanting to do things with refrigerators and late of night with mayonnaise, on foreign posts. The test we're using is, and I want to say very clearly, this is in no way a judgment by any of us on it. It's, would it creep out the mother of a 6-year-old? And it's not fair in the global sense of things. It should have nothing to do with it. But, the reality of life is we're hoping to make as much of the media reactions as positive. But there are going to be some people out there who try to spin it negative just because of their agendas. They're going to find stuff about us regardless. But please let us not have our spokespeople be the people that they're finding stuff out about. So we're going to be incredibly vigilant. We're going to be very vigilant about this. We are looking for extreme, one of the things we would love, by the way, is a mother and teenage boy or father and teenage boy. But I think for telegenesis, a mother and teenage boy would be the best, willing to do this, because that would just be such a great image. Soldiers, tradespeople. What we frankly would like to try to avoid, especially since the people who actually paid money to be in the ad are the Canner Lot Garden folks, so we're going to get geeks in T-shirts anyway. It's just guys in T-shirt in pony merch, reading lines, because we want to try to be diverse, but also we are trying to say, look at the people who are in this fandom. I'd love to see somebody in a lab coat in a research environment, like, even if it's a university biolab or something, just, the image that these are people who have their crap together and they love this show.
Yeah, and I think the thing, too, that I found interesting, and I think that is reinforcing of that, is that the people who make the show, the guys at DHX, the voice actresses, the voice actors, all of those guys, a lot of them call themselves bronies. And it's because when you get involved with watching the show, it really is about the morality. It's not about some kind of weird, sick, twisted, whatever people want to say about it. And again, I think the reason that you get this kind of uncomfortableness from some groups, it's the same reason why people were uncomfortable with civil rights in the past and civil rights today. I think the reason why that you're seeing some of this uncomfortableness is because there are a lot of very socially conservative pundits and members of society who don't understand it, and it's easier to judge than to understand. And I think that hopefully this ad and the best foot forward that you're putting forward with it is going to help, assuage some of those concerns.
Right, and I want to say that I do see some hope here in that, so I have a 17-year-old son, and I am the very rare case of the fandom where I got my son involved because I said, hey, you got to check out this show. The privileges you get when you're nearly 50 is you get to have 17-year-old sons. So for a long time, he didn't tell his friends about it at all. It's like he was the standard, really paranoid brony, but we've been to a bunch of meetups. He's gotten really into it. He loves the online fandom, and he's going to be going to BronyCon with me. And one day he just started wearing his McDonald's Applejack thing on his book bag when he went to school and got a little crap for it. But he also started finding bronies that came out of the woodwork. And then he started wearing his We Love Fine shirts to school. And now he pretty much wears them every day. And he's found 14 bronies in a 3,000 person school in about 2.5 weeks. I see hope for the future in that I don't think the kids are as hung up about this. At that age, at 17, there's a lot of things about gender roles and confusion and what is it to be a man and things like that that kind of play into that. But the fact that these people are coming, by the way, I think about half the people we found were women, really makes me feel good that if we can get over it, if the people who in the 20s, the Gen Zers and the Gen Yers and, the Gen Xers and the boomers can get over it, the generation coming after that, actually the Gen Zers, who are the ones coming up now, I think are already kind of there, but they don't see these artificial distinctions anymore where, oh, that's a girl show, or that's more to the point, a kid's show, and you shouldn't like it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say one thing because, and those of you who have heard me give this list before, I apologize, but a lot of people said, who the heck am I? And why am I qualified to do this? I'm just some random fan. The reality is that, first of all, I am ancient by Brony standards. There are only three Bronies over 50 in my study of 9,000, and I will be 50 in August. So I am definitely on the right side of the bell curve. But, I'm nearly 50 years old. I've been involved in nonprofits and volunteer organizations for most of my adult life. I organized a program that recorded science fiction fantasy for the blind when I was in college. I spent most of the 80s involved in Boston science fiction fandom. I had 6 committee positions on a 4,200-person convention, published 2 program books for conventions, started and ran the Genie Science Fiction Fantasy Roundtable, Genie was a competitor of CompuServe. I've operated C Corps, federal C Corps, and filed tax returns for them. I've operated for 10 years now Unlimited Liability Corporation. I founded a 120-person medieval music event that ran for 5 years. In fact, it still runs. I'm just not involved in it anymore. I produced 2 CDs for that. I was a treasurer of a local Society for Creative Anachronisms branch for a year or so. I've been a 4-H leader for 9 years. I am a registered 4-H shooting instructor. I'm going to be organizing a state shooting of sports event in New Hampshire this year. I've also written 3 books. So I like to say, except for the fact that I cannot keep my room clean my office clean to save my life, I have an inner Twilight sparkle. I'd like to organize things. I'd like to get things done. I like to make things happen. And if things sometimes happen a little fast for some people, it's because I like to get things done. And I will be the first to admit there are times when people say, why don't we sit and talk about this for another 2 weeks? And I will just, because I get very strong visions. I mean, I have to say, we've changed the wording on the script somewhat. We got rid of a little bit of the I want to go live in Equestria wording that some people thought made us look just a little bit weird, if taken out of context. We changed it from we are the Bronies to we are Bronies. But pretty much I've had a vision of what I wanted this ad to look like since the day I thought it up. And I think to get really cool, world-changing things to happen, and I don't want that to sound like I am claiming I am some great Steve Jobsian, but just whenever you try to push the established norms and you want to do something that's new and interesting and exciting, I think you need to have somebody who's got a really clear vision like that. Committees don't do great things. I think sometimes you need someone who's just willing to bullet through and say, yeah, I'm going to take the heat if not everybody likes my idea. Clearly we've raised over $15,000 from people who knew exactly what kind of ad I wanted to make because the script has been out there pretty much from day one. There are clearly people out there who agree with my vision, and I'm hoping that this thing can go through to be a really great commercial we run in the fall.
Well, and I think a lot of people are looking forward to it and are really interested to see it when it does finally come out. Well, so coming up here at the end of June, there is BronyCon, and Everfree Radio is going to be there. Just about everybody's going to be there. Are you going to be there?
I will be there. I am actually on a panel, God help us, 9 a.m. Sunday morning.
Bright and early.
Hey, I'm used to this. This is what Arisha does to me every year as I get it put on the 10 a.m. Sunday panel. But, I mean, I will say I can understand why they put it there because it's on the thrilling topic of the demographics of the herd. I will say that it's more thrilling than it sounds. I got some really interesting results out of the herd census I ran in January. We're also going to have the folks from the Brony study on that panel, and I know a few other people who have been doing studies because they all write and ask me either how I got so many responses or if they can look up my data. So I'm hoping to get 1 or 2 other people who have been doing research studies on the herd to come to that. We'll all talk about what interesting people Bronies are from a statistical standpoint. Twilight Sparkle, of course, being statistically best pony. And we'll also be talking about the plans for next year's herd's census, which will include offering it in more languages and asking more interesting questions about people's inner psyches. Also, if by that time we have not gotten all the footage that we need for the ad, I will probably be ensconced in my hotel room for part of that, filming stuff. And as I said to Pixel Kitties earlier tonight, that doesn't sound at all creepy that I'll be in my hotel room filming ad commercials. Like, yes, come in. Could you read that again? But lie on that bed and put this Trixie outfit on, please.
Well, and actually, Everfree Radio is going to be live streaming all of the events on both of the stages at BronyCon, so people can tune in on that Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and they will be able to watch that live on Everfree Radio's live stream. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I think it's going to be an amazing convention. I think actually that panel is going to be very interesting because a lot of people are really curious about the demographics of the fandom. So I'm looking forward to hearing what your results are. Well, all right, Coder Brony is the founder and mover and shaker of the Brony Thank You Project, the upcoming...
Technically, my title is President and Chairman of the Board of the Brony Thank You Fund Incorporated, a New Hampshire nonprofit.
You heard it from him, guys. There's his title. Thank you again for joining us, and we're all looking forward to seeing the ad when it comes out this fall.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and you've been listening to Everfree Radio.